All right. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin McGrail, also known as Cam. Happy to be here with you with Dido, your premier Google partner that helps manage, migrate, and secure the cloud. Today, we're doing a presentation on inaBOX for BigQuery. We've also got Edward Mitchell here as well, and we'll give you introductions as we go along. But at Dido, our inaBOX initiatives are accelerators around Google technology to make them easy to use. So hence it's your easy button for Google Cloud Data Analytics. And really what it lets you do is very quickly try it before you build it. And, that's an old quote around like building an airplane. As you're building it, you're already starting to fly it. We can bring those kind of acceleration tools to the table. So a little bit about our inaBOX, Rich Fultak, our CISO, also our VP of Cloud. This was his brainchild. Really a lot of people asked about how to use things like BigQuery and had some barriers to using it. He wanted to fix them. Bryce Galichan is now our lead engineer on the project. I'm a cloud fellow here at Dido, and Edward Mitchell is one of our data analytics wizards as well. But, very simply, the BigQuery problem is people are interested in using BigQuery, but they don't know how to get started. They've got some problems. It's difficult. They go sign it up. They got to sign up for an account. They maybe have to sign up and set up Cloud SQL. They got to set up a billing account as well, enter credit cards. And you don't necessarily know how much it's going to cost or whether or not you set all the toggles correctly. And then there literally is probably about 1,000 little checkboxes for security that you'll want to look over. What we do here at Dido is we give you a solution. The question we asked is, what if a user could just start uploading data into BigQuery and not waste any time deploying things and securing things and learning how to use it safely? So the inaBOX for BigQuery gives you that secure solution, lets you use it literally in less than 5 minutes and get you started. And I love this quote here. I've got to do a better job on this quote, calling out that this is a Googler actually making this quote. But a Google Cloud Solutions architect talks about the fact that the inaBOX for BigQuery saves them foundational deployment issues where their pilots take at least 1 to 2 weeks is lost. So even when a Googler is setting all this stuff up, it can take them 1 to 2 weeks to set it up. We've automated all of it. We're using lots of magic and whatnot to do it. But the idea really comes from something we call QuickLabs++. QuickLabs is a wonderful, self-paced lab from Google and Quest where you can learn and experiment with different technologies that Google has. The QuickLabs++, that's an homage to C. In C, the C++ or the plus incrementer takes a variable and increases it by 1. So for those who don't know, C++ is the next increment of C. This is sort of the next increment of QuickLabs. What it lets you do is you can expand on QuickLabs, you can learn BigQuery, and then from there, you have a secure, dedicated, and supported system where you can rapidly train and produce real-world insights. And this is safe to use even in regulated industries like healthcare. So later on in the slide, I think we have 6 resources that Edward and I picked that we thought would be really good if you're interested in BigQuery, you want to learn more about it, and whatnot, but you can't upload real data to it. However, if you do stay to the end of this presentation, we do give attendees a $500 credit and a couple of hours with our engineers to look at complex problems, look at how to get started with BigQuery, and couple that with a couple of the quick labs from Google, and very soon you can do some amazing things and have some real ROI with the tool. So the portal is pretty simple. It's a website called Enrich GCP, and mostly right now when you go to it, you'll see what we call a customer and sales landing page. And it's powered by all those kind of amazing things that I like to talk about, like killing endangered animals and Python and JavaScript and infrastructure as code and risk compliance as code and Firebase and all that magic that gets done when we grind up the endangered animals to power the system, just to make everything happen for you very simply. But what it does at the end of that is gives you a very secured, managed deployment, and really ideal to get started with right away with real data. The portal gives you a couple things. I'll show it to you more than talk about it, but it gives you user management, it gives you billing spend, it gives you budget alerts, it gives you access audits, and it does that all on a single pane of glass. And really it helps you upload and ingest and store data using things like PubSub. Additionally, it helps you manage your data. So for example, the proof of concept mode, automatically allows for a 30-day self-destruct. And, I love this slide because, for example, when I was talking to the artists about making me this slide, I asked them for Natasha and Boris holding a bomb, and they said, "Who are Natasha and Boris?" So I ended up with this graphic instead. Anybody who's old enough like me to remember the Rocky and Bullwinkle show know who Natasha and Boris are. So in my heart, this cartoon girl is always named Natasha holding the bomb. So, that lets us destroy things. But you don't have to worry about your data floating out there on the internet. You can make a proof of concept. It will automatically let you know when your 30-day countdown has reached. You can let the data explode. You don't have to worry that it's out there on the internet somewhere. Additionally, when you're ready to start doing more advanced things with BigQuery, the inaBOX for BigQuery solution from Dido gives you single-click enablement for quite a few products. You can turn on Jupyter Notebooks. You can turn on Fivetran for data ingestion and pipelining. You can turn on Looker, Vertex AI, etc. All these advanced integrations, however, are still provided with that secure model that we talked about, where you can safely use your data. We're leveraging Google's and the industry's best practices, and we're providing what we call an Alcatraz, every island onto its own security model. So every project, every customer is an island of its own. There's no crosstalk between the others. And that way, your data is safe and isn't going to be accidentally shared externally or publicly without you going in and changing the settings, which you can always do. From a billing standpoint, it's very straightforward. What we do is we deploy and operate the system for you, and we bill a small percentage, I think it's 25%, on top of your spend with BigQuery. And billing can be transferred from us to your paper. You lose that managed support platform that you had before. But the idea here is not to get our hooks into you, but rather to give you a quick enablement so you can learn BigQuery, learn what you can do with it, talk to our engineers, invite us to work on projects, solve complex problems, and really kind of bring an ROI from data analytics and Google's amazing planet scale technology. So simple cost to you is a percentage on top of it, and not a very large one. I think you'll also be surprised by how inexpensive Dido is, and not Dido, how inexpensive BigQuery is. Dido is really expensive. No, I'm just kidding about that. I think we're very fairly priced, and we give a good ROI. Everything we do is based on that return of investment. So we want to see you solve a problem and turn it into something that is a cost savings or a profit center for your company. We can help you do that. So without too much further ado, let me see if I can go ahead and bring up Enrich GCP. And I will share that tab. So as I mentioned, this is the tab for, or this is the landing page for enrichgcp.com. This is the landing page for BigQuery. I think we are going to rebrand this to inaBOX.com. We're in the process of doing that, but at the moment, this is where you can go. You can go to login, and pretty simply here, it's all tied in with Google. So I'm going to go ahead and do sign in with Google. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my phone here because we do have multi-factor authentication. Oh, and I'm already logged in from earlier today, so I don't have to do that. And what you get here is a portal for BigQuery in a box. What it gives you is kind of the standard things. There's 4 boxes here: the extract and ingest, the transform, the load and archive, and the analyze and view. For today's purposes, what we're going to focus on really is the load and archive section and the analyze and view. Those are the 2 biggest barriers that most people have when they're trying to get to this system. So, we're using MFA, we're logging in, and what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and navigate to BigQuery in a box over here, and we're going to go ahead and go to the Create Project section. Now, you're creating a project, and what we're going to do in here is we're just going to go ahead and call a project. So let's just call this customer Lemonade, and we'll call it Lemonade Stand as the name of the project. And we're going to make this one a proof of concept, so it's going to have that auto deletion thing. We're going to name it as a dev environment. The only difference between dev and a MSP level, dev in production, which you can only select if you do a MSP level product, is that you can't let Google engineers into your product. So if you're a development environment, Google engineers can be let in to help you work on your solution. Otherwise, even we're firewalled out of the system. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and declare myself as a data owner, and I'm going to pick a data classification. These are just tags to help you with the particular system that you're dealing with. So I'm going to mark this one as an internal project. I'm going to go ahead and create project. So at this point, as I said, all of the unicorn horns are being ground up, etc., to power the magic of Google and Dido's engine to deploy the system. And it only takes a few minutes. We can go over to my projects where I've got a few that are set up. So I've got this one here. You can see the creation status is in progress. But yesterday I set up one so that we would be ready to go with this particular one. So we've got September looms, because I can't believe it is almost September. We're going to go ahead and click View Project, at which point all of the resources are being spun up on the fly because they've been turned off for cost savings purposes. That's part of some of the stuff that we help you automate with the inaBOX solution. And many people know how much money you can spend on a VM or whatnot that's up on a cloud just because you leave it on and it's not being used. So in a few seconds here, we will have the system, assuming I click the button properly, let me make sure I did click it. And what we will get from here is we'll be able to go in here and we'll be able to see our single pane of glass and whatnot. So on here, this is a brand new project I just spun up. So you can see that $500 credit. We haven't spent any of it. Additionally, we've got the import data button. We've got the access BigQuery button, which Edward will talk about that as it's his favorite button. So, oh my gosh, it's almost September is the name of this project. September Looms was the short name. Our access logs don't show anything yet because we haven't used it. But very quickly, for example, I can do things like I can add Tammy at didoweb.com as a user, and what will happen in real time is that user will go and have the rights added to it with the identity access management up on Google Cloud for the BigQuery project, etc. You'll see the particular project here that will come out and show that the username is there and that the role is there in a few seconds. And it will just Ajax, use that concepts of web, so it'll auto update on the fly. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and for example, remove that user. So I could very easily just click remove. It comes up, yes, revoke access, and Tammy would no longer have access to this project. So really easy way to see your bill spend, to see who's got access, to see what's been happening on the project, as well as a really quick ability to upload data. So let's go ahead and upload a file. And what we're going to do here, we're going to go to a new tab now. And this is going to bring us to a simple bucket. There's two main buckets that we have, internal and archive, basically. The internal upload is going to allow me to upload a file, have BigQuery automatically watch for it. Pub sub connections are kicked off that go ahead and look at the schema of a file that I've uploaded, go ahead and then take a look at the particular file, and if the schema is okay, it goes ahead and uploads it and then automatically moves it into the archive bucket so that it's out of the upload. So let's go ahead and click upload files. I've got a simple CSV that I've created called unique OCIDs, but I'm in the wrong directory. There we go. So this is just a simple file. We're going to go ahead and do override object, and we're going to go ahead and continue uploading. This is just if you already have something with the same name. So this file has been successfully uploaded, and in literally a few seconds, a pub sub process will be kicked off, and the queue will be done to ingest this file, and we'll be able to go ahead and use it. And I should be able to go ahead and see that, for example, by going to Access BigQuery. And then on BigQuery over on the left-hand side, when this loads up, we will have what our specific data points are at. Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go. So we've got the September Looms project. We've got our BigQuery data set, and here's our unique OCIDs that I went and loaded. And I can go ahead and do things like preview that file and things like that. So I could see what's in the file. I could see that it ingested it correctly. So that's the basics of really how, whoops, I didn't share the file. So here's what I was showing you. I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget to do the share tab function. You can see in BigQuery, I've got the project, the BigQuery data set, and the unique OCIDs, and then I went to preview. So you can go ahead and see that that's going on. So at this point now, what we've basically done is, gotten you ready to actually run BigQuery on data very, very quickly, very, very safely, and whatnot. And because with this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that, we've solved the pain points that you have. And, one of those pain points really is kind of like, what's data analytics? I mention this because a lot of companies are confused by this. So data analytics is just the science where you produce insights based on a hypothesis from data. And that can be done manually, it can be done automatically. You can use Google Sheets, you can use a napkin, doesn't matter. Data analytics doesn't require anything fancy. It's just using data to come up with a hypothesis, etc. Machine learning is the next step. That's where you use the hypothesis in data analytics to produce machine learning models that produce predictions. Artificial intelligence builds on machine learning, which builds on the data analytics to produce automated actions. That's really the key thing. And this is, by the way, thanks to Dave Robinson. He really simplified it for a lot of people. But, like, for example, if I'm talking to people about this exact chain, I will talk about anti-spam, for example. It's a clear example of how data analytics has worked with machine learning and with artificial intelligence that you've probably been using for a few decades. So what happens is scientists sit down, they look at a corpora or a body of good email and bad email. They sort it, and then from that, they're able to build machine learning models so that a new email comes in, algorithms are run, which compare and run through those machine learning models and make a prediction. Is this new email that just came in a good email or a bad email? And then from that, artificial intelligence says, I'm going to move this to the junk folder, or I'm going to allow it to go to the inbox. That's it. So a lot of people are usually really confused and kind of think that it's a lot of magic. But the key point is it's just hard work with building on top of data analytics that can bring process automation to what you're doing and make your life a lot easier. So inaBOX for BigQuery, it's really ideal for a ton of uses. Obviously, it's great for anybody that's trying to leverage large scale analytics. And don't think too strongly about large scale. Sometimes large scale can be you're combining a bunch of data, you're using structured and unstructured data that would make it very difficult. And sometimes, for example, we had a server where we uploaded only 1 gig of data from one server for 60 days, and processing that on that server took 10 minutes. Processing it in BigQuery, because of that scale of economies that's brought by Google, literally took sub-seconds. And we were able to add multiple years worth of data, multiple server clusters into that data logs and still get very, very, very quick responses. That if we were doing it on 20 clusters at 10 minutes a time, we'd be talking 200 minutes of clock time to do that work. Maybe if we ran it in parallel, it would only still be 10 minutes. But if you're looking to dive into BigQuery, but you've been worried about how much it costs or how to set it up, the security issues, the technology, it's really ideal for this. We will set you up in just a few minutes, and you can literally start uploading data and exploring BigQuery. And if you're attending this thing, you're probably looking to move beyond spreadsheets. You're looking to learn BigQuery. You're looking to take structured and unstructured data, and we can show you those ideas and what you can do with it. And you can safely do that, even if you're working in a regulated healthcare industry, for example, where you can start experimenting with real data, build a proof of concept, start identifying if there's proof of concepts have any legs. Rich Fultek, again, our CISO, talks about the fact that most projects for analytics fail. So like 90% or more fail. So we want you to fail fast and fail quickly and fail often, I guess. So upload some data, see if there's some visualizations, see if there's some queries that can extract the data that you need for that ROI, for that business use, and do so in just a few minutes. If it doesn't work out, you can move on. But the whole thing here, save you that deployment time, and you get that free credit. So what we're going to do next, we're going to try and step over here, and we're going to really try and get a couple of real world use cases. So the two that we're going to go with today that Edward's going to demo. Number one, we're going to do one. I don't think I'm stealing too much thunder. We're going to do one about little free libraries. And we're going to do another one about analyzing some audit logs. And so I love this picture that's up here on the screen because that's my son sitting on a little free library, or next to a little free libraries. If you're not familiar with these are great little libraries where you can get a book. I won't steal more thunder, but we're also going to talk about how audit logs for Google Workspace became a sticking point for a customer and how we were able to use BigQuery inaBOX very quickly. So at this point, I think we're going to dive into the real world use cases. Edward, is there anything you can think of I forgot, or should I go ahead and do the intro into the first demo and let you have the screen?
Yeah, let's go into the first demo.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and stop the screen. Let Edward go ahead and do it. So Edward, as I mentioned, is one of our absolute wizards of data analytics. So I will say, I challenge you, if anybody's on the call and wants to give him a question, please do ask. We'd love to know your pain points. And, later on, if you have, complex situations you're trying to solve, reach out to us, let us know. But this particular one is the little free libraries, right? So let me pull that one up.
Yeah, and Cam and I really connected around this one because part of data analytics is we're trying to spread information to others, and Little Libraries does that. It distributes books to places where people might not have books.
Yeah, so this demo works with a public data set of free little libraries. And with it, we're going to combine it with a database of bus stops. And we're going to visualize that data in GeoViz and Data Studio. And what we really want you to think about is what you can do with your data combined with public data sets, and then also combined with the really, really powerful GeoViz capabilities, the ability to take geospatial data and put something on a map. What kind of information could that help you drive in your business? So, Edward?
Yeah, thank you very much. So our second demo that helps us see what we can do with a single data set. Here we're going to combine two different data sets. So if you're trying to augment your data, you need a second data set, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. So as Cam said, this is my favorite button. You can see down here, Bryce and I have access to this project. And so I can hit this Access BigQuery button, and right away, it pulls us into the project. And so I come from Microsoft SQL Server before this, and this feels very familiar. I have a SQL environment, and so if you have SQL data analysts, they'll feel right at home here, regardless of what kind of SQL they've come from. And right away, we can see everything that's been uploaded. But what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at some public data. And so if I just type in OpenStreet, that's going to pull up OpenStreetMaps once I broaden the search to public data. And you can see it's geodata, it's OpenStreetMaps. And this will work really wonderfully in BigQuery because it has a lot of great geodata types like you would find in a GIS system. So you don't need to pay for an expensive GIS license. So when you get a new data set, you always want to explore it first. It's very easy to do here. You can click on one of these tables within these data sets, and right away it's telling you your schema, how it's organized, all your metadata. But I always like to go to preview first. So right away, we're really seeing what kind of data is. And the nice thing about this is you're not even charged for accessing this data or processing this data at this point, because you're only charged for processing your data once you're running queries. And so you can really get an idea of what kind of data you're looking at and sort of browse and window shop before you jump into it.
No, that's important because I think a lot of people are really worried about BigQuery because they don't know how much it'll cost because, excuse me, Google's pricing model is a little confusing. It's like, hey, it's $5 per teraflop of processing. It's like, okay, what does that mean? So, with inaBOX for BigQuery, one of the things you get is the ability to upload your real data, run real queries against it, see what the spend is. You've got that single pane of glass that very quickly gives you your spend. You can set up budget alerts as well. And you can avoid doing some things like, I think we've talked about it before, but didn't you have somebody that did like select star from maybe Wikipedia, was it?
Yes, exactly. And so you can type in wiki here and you can see the Stack Overflow, that's another huge one. And if you select star from that, you could very well be in big trouble. That's why we limit the maximum query size on this.
Yeah, and so this is part of the baby bumpers that we give you within a box to keep you out of trouble. But there's tons of public data sets. Also, a really neat kind of like ROI aspect. At Dido, we're very cloud aware. We're also cost conscious, and so we're always making sure that you're getting those cost savings when you move to the cloud that you expect. That your costs are being managed. That systems aren't just running that you're forgotten about. But also, there's neat things like you can actually, if you have a data set that might be useful, you can actually publish it as a public data set and monetize it so that when people query it, you can actually have an income generating feature from public data sets as well.
So. Very true. So let's jump into this. We've found that this is indeed point data, and we've all kinds of point data. And I've already got a window with some queries open.
And point data means?
Yeah, point data, longitude and latitude. So
Okay.
we're actually looking at geopoints. Again, you don't have to have a fancy GIS system. BigQuery natively handles these longitude and latitudes.
Okay.
And so, I mean, imagine if you're trying to decide the location of a new store or a vending machine, this kind of analysis would be great. So what we have here is we have our BigQuery data. I have pinned it so that we can access it later. And what I am doing is I'm just looking at all these various tags to see, like we're looking at highways and street lamps. We're looking at all kind of data. And then I am able to sort of pare that down. So this is sort of semi-structured data in that if you're uploading like JSON or arrays, BigQuery doesn't have to be as normalized in SQL Server. If you ever studied like a database class, you had to learn how to normalize your data. And basically all of your efforts are spent on normalize your data and then joining it back together. You save so much time in BigQuery because you don't have to do that. You can actually have arrays within your data, and you're dealing with sort of semi-normalized data. It runs much faster. It works great as a data warehouse. You no longer have to do star schema or any of those fancy data architectures.
And Edward is an analyst. He is an engineer. I think we'll show you a really concrete example in the next one about what does that really mean for you and why is that so cool. But, effectively, I would say if you know SQL and you know NoSQL, the concept that you can combine the two together in a query very, very quickly with data sets. So you don't have to massage all your data. You don't have to have, like, for example, 4 data engineers for every analyst just to get the data in the right format. The analysts can self-fulfill and do a lot of cool stuff very, very quickly with BigQuery. And I'm sure we'll show some of the BigQuery CPU load stuff as well.
Yep.
So.
And that is about what we're going to get to. We have pulled everything. We're looking at highway, we're looking at bus stops, and we are looking everything within 50 kilometers of the Bay Area. And so
did we explain I don't think we told them like what we were looking for.
So right now we're going to be looking at bus stops right now. And once we show that, then I will sort of show you the business use case for this.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at bus stops from a database, and we're getting latitude and longitude points back from it.
Exactly. So
and
this is
within a certain number of miles from some center radius.
Yeah, we're looking at bus stops around the entire world, and we've pulled this within 4 seconds.
Okay.
Now the slot time consumed is 15 minutes. So if you're running on a single server, that's about how long you would have to wait. Waiting around for 15 minutes means your analyst doesn't have time to iterate quickly and dig down and analyze the data. They're going to spend most of their time sort of correcting queries and waiting for it to run. Here,
and you would never make any errors on queries, but say if somebody did, they would have to go wait 15 minutes to find out it was wrong to then fix it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now, even better, you can so quickly analyze this. Once I've run, we've got a couple of ways of visualizing this. We can go in Google Sheets, right? Which just like Excel, Sheets has many wonderful ways of visualizing data. You can put in pivot tables. We have Data Studio, which is a great free data visualization dashboarding tool that comes with GCP. And here I'm going to show you a GeoViz. Now GeoViz pops up.
Also free, by the way.
Yeah, also free. This is mapping that actually runs on your computer, so it's extremely fast. And the query size was 21 gigabytes, and we are running through this data, and we can see all the bus stops in the Bay Area.
Is your computer really powerful? Do you have a ton of RAM?
Yeah, it's a MacBook Pro. It's a laptop, and it's running just wonderfully.
So it's not anything special, or it has 8 terabytes of RAM. So this is just a normal desktop, and you can see how fast it is. None of this is canned. This is all running in real time on this demo.
And we're running 12,000 points here. So we're seeing bus stops on both sides of the road. And just, like you could do in a GIS system, you can look at points, you can look at regions, counties, to really analyze your data.
Excellent. So now I know where all the bus stops in San Francisco. What's my business use case?
Thanks for asking. So now, if you know where all your bus stops are, what do you want when you're sitting by a bus, right? Maybe you want to get a drink from a vending machine. Maybe you want to grab a book that you can read. So we're going to look to make sure that people have access to books. So where are we going to put these little libraries? I'm thinking if we can put them, make sure that collections of bus stops are close to these little libraries would be a great way to make sure that people have access to books.
Okay.
So let's do that. So let's look, instead of San Francisco, let's jump to London. And this time I am joining them together by making sure that they are close together. I'm looking for bus stops that are within 10 kilometers of a bookcase. And let's look at that.
And what was impressive about this when Edward first showed it to us? By the way, one of the things we do on these demos, we do not try and have massive amounts of polish on them. We're trying to solve real problems quickly to show you that you can jump in to BigQuery and in a few minutes start getting analytics. But one of the things that was so amazing is we didn't have to do any join optimization. We didn't have to massage the data. We didn't have to worry about indices, none of that. All of that is handled on the fly by Google in the background. And, again, oh yeah, you brought it up, the elapsed time versus the slot time. I'll kick it over to you, Edward, for that.
Yeah, and this one is really amazing because we're getting them back in 5 seconds. We're basically comparing all the bus stops in the world compared to all the little libraries in the world. And I mean, I did do a little bit of optimization in that I was making sure that all of these were close to London first. And but this works great with geographic data, and it pulls it back in 5 seconds. It's massively parallel. So we're essentially doing a large cross join, and it just does fine. You don't have to wait that full hour. You get it back in 5 seconds.
And this is the only time you get billed, is when you actually run these queries, you get the results back. And my understanding is, I believe if you run this query again, it's got a very high likelihood of being cached, at which point it'd be free to get the results back from, right?
Exactly. And you're actually billed by the data you've processed, not the slot time consumed under this model. And so you know exactly how much you're going to be charged before you actually run the query.
Nice.
And so let's take a look at visualizing this. We can pull it into Data Studio this time. And Data Studio, they're always getting great updates. Right away, it gives you 2 nice sort of charts. And very quickly, if you want to change this to a map, bam, we're already getting a map. But how do we tell if these things are close to each other? How do we know where we're going to put the libraries? So I've refined this a little bit. All I've added is a little bit of color metrics to it. So I'm just checking sort of the minimum distance between a bookcase and a bus stop. And so I'm changing the color based on this information. And let me
and especially for people like me that have been used to using something like Tableau, where I've got to really set up a lot of things before I jump in. Data Studio is amazing. We can just decide that we want to view things. Now we want to change it into a map. Now we want to change it into different colors. I mean, it's really amazing to do quick visualizations. And, in this particular case, what is something that looks like a giant brain of cauliflower going to tell us? And kind of, so you can experiment with different ways to bring out the data the way you need to. So.
Yeah, and so this is quite magical. I can zoom in to this light area, and now we're seeing small light circles. That means these are within 400 meters. These are within 800 meters. But then you can see, oh man, in the very middle of the city, you've got this dark spot with these large dark circles. Now, these are about 5 kilometers away from a bookcase. So these are the bus stops that we need to serve right along the center. And you can see these sort of channels where we could put some bookcases. And then the people of London would have more access to books as they're riding their bus stops, or they can jump off and grab a book on the way home.
So very, very quickly, you've got a visual way to see density and distance all in one color. And, this could be used for, where are your competitors' offices? Where do you want to open an office that puts you, a certain distance away from all your competitors? Or where do you want to put vending machines that would have high traffic, et
And I
cetera?
used to look at gas stations. Gas stations, you always want you have a competitive price to your neighbor.
Excellent. All right. Anything else for that demo, or should I introduce the second one?
Please do. Let's go.
All right. So the next one, and by the way, I do encourage if anybody has any questions, we will turn off the recording at the end if you want to ask them without being recorded. But if you want to jump in and challenge Edward to do something, if you wanted to change the visualization or ask him a question about it, please do. Anybody? All right. Moving on. Okay. The next one really this was a real world use case with a workspace audit. So for those who are familiar with Google Workspace, when you export logs from the admin interface, you're limited to 100,000 lines. So basically, we were able to instead use GAM, which is an open source tool that was invented at Dido that every single workspace administrator should learn and love and use. But with that, we had an urgent request to find out what was going on with this data. And they wanted to go back perhaps up to like 180 days. So for this purpose of this presentation, we have anonymized the email address. But with it, we were able to split the product and the scopes into arrays using BigQuery functions. So that's a lot of that unstructured data that we'll talk about. But we had 6 days or 5 days of data, I can't remember which, and it was over 1 million rows. With that, we ended up with nearly 15 million cells. And at which point now we're starting to get where we can't view this easily in Google Sheets or Excel. It's just too large, too slow, if it'll even load. And we were only loading 5 days. We wanted to get this up to 180 days. I think we eventually decided on 60 days with the customers. And in fact, the longest time of this entire project was actually uploading what was about 1 gigabyte of uncompressed data. We've since made it so you can upload compressed data. So that would have made it about 50 megabytes instead of nearly 1 gigabyte. But with this, we can aggressively, we can aggregate the data. We can take those unstructured scopes and unstructured email addresses, and with that, we can look at the information that the customer needed. Edward was able to actually get on a call with the customer and brainstorm with them for about 45 minutes, actually maybe even a little less. After 1 hour of preparation, that's it. So 1 hour and 45 minutes. Took real data from a real audit, brought it in, and rapidly gave usable insights that frankly would have taken me hours on doing something like taking logs and CSV files and using grep and sed and awk. Very valid. I would have probably gotten the same results, but nowhere near as quickly. And especially if we could have anything where, like, for example, we want to take those audit results and look at, IP addresses, tie them into GeoIPs, bring them in. But now, like I said, we can do things like Apache Parquet files, we can upload zip files, and things would be like 1/20th the speed. So we probably could have done all that work before in about an hour. But BigQuery inaBOX took all the pain out of deploying BigQuery. We stood it up in just a few minutes, and all we had to think about was, how can we get the logs? How can we get the SIM data? How can we get our data lakes? How can we ingest that? How can we connect it? How can we pipeline it? And that was all taken care of for us. At which point, all we had to do was, what data do we have and how can we analyze it? So, Edward, sorry for the very long introduction, but
it's all right. But you didn't mention that they actually took my very first deliverable when I sent them the list of emails that they wanted to migrate and possible problems that they'd have, and it had all the info in it.
I did not remember that, so that's awesome.
So yeah, in data analytics, you often get a lot of back and forth. Again, there was just one meeting where I built the visualization, and then they took that very first deliverable. So let's take a look here. Again, we can access BigQuery, but let's stop here a second. Let's look at my spend. We've been running this for a few months, correct, Cam?
I think this is the same account we've been using for since March, right?
That's correct. And we have spent less than $3.
Yeah, BigQuery it's death by a million paper cuts. So it's like a penny every time you do something. But BigQuery inaBOX, our inaBOX solutions, upload real data, run some queries, spend our $500 that we're giving you to find out how much money it's going to cost. Let you put in a very, very valid purchase request. to justify what your spend's going to be. And I think you'll find it's infinitesimal. And the cost savings, I mean, I don't know that I can quantify it, but certainly anecdotally, I can say that, my time doing analysis, my time doing, a CSV analysis, experience working with SQL Server. I know Edward has the same the amount of time I spend or save not having to wait for queries and results to come back with BigQuery is enormous. I mean, it at least doubles my productivity when I'm doing this type of work. Would you agree or say even more, Edward?
Oh, I would 100% agree. And so one great thing is we've set it up so that for doing sort of ad hoc analysis or very quick, dirty pipelines, we're just uploading files here. And we just have a simple number at the end of each of those files. And now we can actually access this metadata within our queries so that we know which day these files have come in. It's a very quick and dirty data pipeline where every file is separate. And we can query within these 60 days of data. And so
So 60 days of files, 1 file per day. So 60 tables, basically.
Yeah, 60 tables. And so we're pulling these up. We're looking at every single day worth of data.
And you didn't even have to type in the table names. You could use a star.
Yep, just a star. And so we're seeing report day 1, report day 2, report day 3, and just this simple table suffix term pulls up which suffix or which happens to be the day that report came from, and we can see where that came from. And looking the data within, again, if you're in a SQL Server or something, it's quite difficult to work with array data, and so we ended up just having comma delimited lists within the field. That's really a pain to deal with.
So let me jump in there for a second. So what we had from this audit was every single user that logged in and what APIs they were interacting with. And we would just get all those APIs just came in as a big, giant, comma delimited list. Yet BigQuery can turn those into a structured query. So you have unstructured data quickly turned into structured data for queries. And you could do things like do a select where it just shows one of those scopes. But we were able to turn the scope into structured data on the fly. Can you show us where you did that?
Exactly. So it's just this simple little subquery here. I mean, it's less than 100 characters.
Yeah. So the split is the key function built into BigQuery, extremely efficient. And if you're used to doing subqueries or anything like that, that's the kind of stuff where it's like that 57-minute query that we talked about earlier, can take a weekend to run because you're doing subqueries inside of queries inside of subqueries. Yet you'll see again the results come back extraordinarily quickly.
So instead of spending an hour normalizing the data, building a bunch of tables, I just ran this one query that takes it's 7 lines. And so the keyword is sort of dynamically. I've built this data out. I can see which products that they're pulling from. I can see all of these scopes. These are actually the third-party products that are actually contacting this kind of information that we've given permission to access our Drive data. And let's visualize it.
And with this, you created a dashboard that they could very easily share internally, right? For the audit purposes.
Exactly. So with a simple query, this has turned into a query, and we just reconnect to this query here. And this was mostly built for me automatically. Let me just cancel since it's already built in here. So these were sort of the default that Data Studio gives you. Ended up being very useful. And then here, I built a simple time series. And what this helped me do is show the client that the data sort of match with this expectations. Do you have any idea why we sort of see these periodic humps in the amount of API calls that we have to Gmail and Drive, et cetera?
So I'm sure I know the answer, but not because we've talked about this before, but I've seen this many times. Those are going to be the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So every 7 days, you get this little dip for Saturday, Sunday. You can see it's 2 days. This one just happens to be 1, but most of them are these 2-day dips. And then we can see this one very large hump, and I can click on it, bam, it drills down. You get drill down just sort of baked into this solution. And you can see this abnormal security. So the security API, it's constantly making calls to make sure that all of your G Suite is secure, and in making a lot of calls on that particular day.
Interesting tidbit about that type of graph and showing those days. That's actually how I got involved almost 30 years ago now in anti-spam, because doing an analysis like that, we found that spam dropped to 0 on Thanksgiving Day in the United States. And we stopped getting spam from external countries. And that became a question of, why was a US holiday on a Thursday? Why did it plummet all spam almost to 0? And then on top of that, little things like, for example, what day has the most mail sent in the world and whatnot. And it's typically right around the holidays, like right before the holidays start, because everybody's getting tons and tons done, like on, before Christmas Eve or before Hanukkah starts. Just kind of an interesting little thing. But yeah, great for verifying, like, okay, this looks like what I'm expecting to see, and it drops off to 0 during the weekends and then comes back up. Really good idea there.
And this kind of exploratory analysis is exactly why the client was able to accept our very first submission, because they already had confidence in our data.
Yeah, and they could drill down. It wasn't just screenshots. It wasn't just the static data. They could take it, manipulate it, do things, visualize it, chart it differently, et cetera, all very, very quickly. So wonderful.
And extremely easy. I've shared this with Cam already. I can share people to view. I can share people to edit this dashboard. Very easy to share your data.
Yeah, and I mean, the concepts of things where we can take that, we can bring it into situations where we use things like rclone and SSH and Google Drive. Like, I don't know that we showed it, but like, for example, you can actually analyze data directly off of BigQuery. I think it has about an 18 times penalty from our testing that we've done before. But you just get a drive file, or you get log files up to Google Drive. You can query them just like we did here. You don't have to do a whole lot. You can have quick and dirty pipelines, and then bring efficiency later on if there's any type of repetitiveness to this. But very quickly, if we wanted to have this report on what third-party apps were used in the last month or last week, we could build a dashboard. It could be brought up on a leadership meeting very, very quickly, because we all know leaders like to see pretty graphs. They don't like to see hard data and whatnot. So thank you, Edward. I'm going to go ahead and go back to our slides, unless you had more you wanted to show.
Yeah, I just wanted to, let's just go back to the slot time. A lot of people hear the term BigQuery and think you have to have big data. But I need to remind you, from an analytics standpoint, 6 seconds versus 1 minute makes a huge difference in terms of my performance as an analyst.
Right. And some of them, one of the ones we showed was 5 seconds versus an hour. And those were not large data sets. They're certainly not what we would call planet scale Google size data sets. So, like the one mail server logs that we were dealing with was only one server for 60 days. And that already was 10 minutes of work on that server. And like I said, they wanted to scale that to 20 clusters. Each cluster has 8 servers, so what, about 160 servers. And they wanted to do it for multiple years. And we were only doing it for 60 days. That's the kind of stuff. It's not really that large. A lot of people have data up in a SIM, for example, but they can't analyze it because they have too much data in the SIM.
Exactly.
All right. Wonderful. Well, let me go ahead and bring us back to the slides and see if we can go ahead and finish up for the day. So what we've got here, like I said, we did our 2 real world use cases. We do have a teaser. We do have other inaBOX solutions, like for GAM, Looker. We also have our bare metal solutions, especially things for Oracle. So if you're interested in other ways that we can use our technology to speed up and accelerate your adoption of Google technologies, that's really one of the places that Dido shines and helps. From a resources standpoint, I will say, it's, I think Edward already took my thunder. It's very amazing with small data sets. You don't have to have huge data to do it. But at the end of the day, you have no server. There's nothing to wire up. You can lower your need for data engineers. Your need to massage data isn't there. Basically, you can automate things just to get your analysts down to start working. And, really, SQL analysts, I think one of the biggest things they find is this ability to do NoSQL and SQL at the same time, structured, unstructured. We can do things like pull IPs out, match them with like MaxMind's database, all built into BigQuery, all with functions that are built in quite easily. And we're happy to set up a one-to-one with your analysts, talk about things, talk about complex solutions, and brainstorm with them. But also we have the quick labs. So if you guys have any data sets, you have any complex questions you want to ask us about with our staff, we're seeking more real world use cases. It's a great way to get some free work out of Dido with some expert engineers who do this stuff. There are over 121 quick labs when you just search for BigQuery. It's quick, QWIK, labs.com. We did pick a few that we've got here, the quick start with 072, the getting started with GIS, which is 866, analyzing billing data, which is 621, predicting purchases in an e-commerce model, which is 229. And then there's a BigQuery basics for data analytics, or data analysts, excuse me. I think it's Quest 69, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. And these are the ones that we picked that we thought would be a great start. But you're not going to go wrong on Google doing any of their particular products. But if you guys have an ask, you can just email me, cam@didoweb.com, or you can use the QR bit.ly form. I need to put that into the chat here in a second. But with that, you can learn more about BigQuery. There's no strings to this. As you saw in this presentation, we're all about highly educating customers. We're not about high sales. You will not get a high pressure sales pitch because you fill this out. You'll really just get to talk to engineers and look at $500 in a credit and start playing with the technology. And we'd love to show what we can do and earn your business and talk to you about more analytics needs. So I will go ahead and let's see. I don't know. Edward, are you able to grab that bit.ly and put it in there? It's not easy for me, or I'll have to stop sharing the slide deck to do it.
Yeah, let me see if I can grab that.
I can do it. I can just come out of presenter mode. That'll work. There we go. Now I'll go back into presenter mode. Assuming I didn't go all the way back to the beginning. All right, there we go. All right, so anybody who's interested, please do fill that out. And I will go ahead and stop the recording. And once we've done that, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask that are not recorded, we're all ears.